The district posted this evening's agenda to board docs at least 24 hours prior to the commencement of this meeting. Is there a motion to approve that previously posted agenda?
So move.
Second.
Are there any amendments to offer?
There are no amendments.
Thank you. The agenda has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. Motion carried. I will now turn over the Education and Pupil Services Committee agenda to co-chair Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Director Desnoyers. Dr. Kelly, Mr. Marshall, could you please begin with an overview of your agenda items for this evening? I know we only have one, so you can go right into it.
Good evening. Yes, we have one agenda item tonight. It's our annual school safety and security update. I have with me here tonight Mr. Manley, our Director of Public Safety, and we'll go through an overview of some support systems we have in place here in the district, but also our preparedness and protocols we have for in the event of an emergency crisis or a drill that does occur in our district. So I'll start by turning it over to Mr. Manley. Sorry, one last slide before we get to Mr. Manley. We have our agenda for this evening. Some big topics to go through: the emergency response language and procedures, our communication strategies that we do utilize in the district, our proactive efforts to support students and staff within our district using mental health supports, and then two newer type procedures. They are also board policies. One is threat assessments and one is Title IX investigations and reporting. Mr. Manley.
Thank you, Ed. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to conduct this review. Of the four main procedures, the emergency response procedures that we use, the first two are the least restrictive. When the emergency response procedures were first initiated, it seemed like probably the late 90s or early 2000s, it was all or nothing, with the lockdown being the main procedure used. Then it was decided to come up with a few other plans so that they would not be as disruptive as what the lockdown procedure can be. They came up with the lockout and the lock-in responses, which are less restrictive procedures that give the building administrators the opportunity to maintain some level of control while evaluating the ongoing situation. The principals are the only people who will initiate these lockouts or lock-ins, as well as being the only person authorized to release these events. While police assistance will probably be taking place, the principals do not need their okay to initiate nor release the events. Once initiated, these lockouts and lock-ins are flexible. You can go from a lockout to a lock-in or a lock-in to a lockdown. However, these processes will not be reversed. Once initiated, that level of control will remain in place until brought under control to the satisfaction of the principal. These responses are all initiated in the same way, with the principal making first a PA announcement 3 times to let the staff know what is happening. And this is followed up by the Crisis Go alert, which goes out to all staff in the building. We start out with our least restrictive response, which is the lockout. The lockout initiates when the disturbance or cause for concern is outside the building. We want to make sure it stays outside the building. My favorite example is Charles Kelly. A couple years ago, we had the bear, which caused quite a scenario for staff to maintain some control of the building at that point. The lockout there was the perfect scenario, staff, security, and again, with the assistance of the police, they were able to continue regular instruction throughout the school day while maintaining the safety of the building and the students and staff. The administration, security, maintenance, and additional staff are placed on the inside of the exterior doors to make sure that that situation does stay outside. Any and all outside activity is brought into the building to the principal's satisfaction. In-class instruction will continue. Classes can change. Inside gym classes take place. Lunches can happen. Normal school building operation continues. Again, with the assistance of the police, the principal will then make a decision when that response can be released, brought to a close. We can then move to our lock-in situation. The lock-in response is initiated when the situation or cause for concern is inside that school building. All the common areas need to be cleared. The building principal will decide what area it is that needs to be controlled, but all the students and staff will be confined to their classrooms or offices. Staff are trained that prior to locking themselves in their classroom, they are to sweep the hallways and any nearby bathrooms or other common areas and bring those students immediately into their classrooms. Through the Crisis Go app, they can account for any extra students they have or students that they're missing, and the administration will sort that attendance issue out as the situation progresses. In-class instruction can continue, however, nothing changes as far as classes go. No one leaves their classroom, no one leaves their offices. These situations, the lockout and the lock-in, can result in a delay of dismissal. And as an administration and the central district team will make arrangements for whatever that building principal needs. Again, only the principal in this situation can release the lock-in response. The lockdown. The lockdown is the district response as a result of a life-threatening event occurring inside the school, on school grounds, or immediately adjacent to the school that has a high probability of moving onto the school grounds. This is the nightmare scenario. Somebody's life is in immediate danger, and all school activity is brought to a halt. This is the active shooter, armed intruder scenario. This alert can be initiated by anyone in the building, verbally, through Crisis Go, or through the PA. The PA announcement, once made, is the last type of signal that the staff and students will respond to. They are trained not to respond to any further PA announcements, knocks on the doors, fire alarm triggers. They are to find that safe spot in their classroom where they feel safe and out of view of whatever it is that's causing the danger. The doors are to be closed, locked, lights are put out, shades over windows are drawn. And again, the staff should already have that space in their classroom where they know that they will be out of sight from windows or hallway doors where the intruder could see into where they're located. Again, all building activity comes to a halt. The situation is completely under the control of the police. The lockdown scenario initiates in the staff and students' mind, it should be the run, hide, fight scenario response. We practice the hide. The hide is the drills that we conduct for the classroom's safety. There are other circumstances, gym classes, auditorium gatherings, cafeteria situations. If one of these incidents takes place during that time, the best option may be to run. Right out the doors, keep on going till they feel safe. All staff are trained to know their alternative rally points and to remain at that location until cleared by police, until police release that situation. Inside the buildings, the staff have all been trained that they will not move from their safe areas until they see a police officer. Not the principal, not security, strictly a police officer is the only one who can release the lockdown. I'm sorry, the one last part of that, the fight, that is the true nightmare scenario where they come face to face with whatever the threat is in the building. And I cannot stress enough to the staff that the mindset at that point must be just choose not to be a victim. We all like to think if we're going to go down, we're going to go down swinging. But certainly when there's children's lives involved, we have to maintain that mentality. Evacuations are something everybody has done in their school lives, dozens, if not hundreds of times. A scenario where the principal or someone in administration has decided the building needs to be evacuated in the quickest, safest manner possible. In our trainings, we ensure that the staff know their specific route, stairwell, and rally point, not only outside the building, but also off-site. And their main responsibility at that point is once they're out of the building, they must take attendance and account for all of their staff. Crisis Go, again, is used to account, not only to alert the staff of the situation, but also account for attendance. Dell Pass is the next thing on our agenda, which is a communication system set up for every school building in Delaware County. Anybody familiar with a main office in their school building? There's a gray box up on the wall with a big red button on the front of it. What that box is once that button is hit, it opens a direct line of communication to the 911 center in Lima. And that live line is, once activated, the dispatchers or call takers at the 911 center can hear exactly what's going on in that office. The staff are trained to, if safe, to continue talking to that box to let them know exactly what's taking place. And then the dispatcher can then alert the first responders the conditions to what they're walking into. The dispatcher cannot speak to the staff, but they listen to everything that's coming their way and pass that along to the first responders. Again, that is located in the main office of every school building in the county. The different communications we have throughout the district are spelled out not only in the MOU that we have with local law enforcement, but While the events are going on at the schools, the central administration team is communicating to members of the community and the parents. Parents of our students can sign up for Crisis Go, and they will get the alerts that are put out by the district. They're not getting the communications that are going on within the school building itself, but they are constantly getting updates as appropriate by the district central administration. And there's also different social media sites, platforms that are used, Instagram, Facebook, where the communications can be delivered in addition to the district website. The last agenda on my list is the Safe to Say Something program, which is a program run by the Pennsylvania Attorney General's Office. And it is a system where any student or parent can anonymously report through the website, a phone number, or a phone app any concerns that they have regarding the safety or health of another individual. These items are vetted in Harrisburg and then distributed throughout the state to the local school district and, if necessary, the local police department. And it truly is a 24/7, 365 operation where we get notified of different issues, complaints, suspicions that the school district and specifically building administrators have to act on to ensure the safety of our students.
Okay, we're going to switch over to some of the preventive measures we have in our district. Around this time last year, we presented a similar presentation. We talked about considerations, and one of them was putting in a type of attendance tracking system for students to make sure our students who come into our building are, in fact, our students. I'm happy to report that now this school year, with the work of the board and the administration, we do have something called school paths now in play, in place in our secondary schools, up in our high school and our 2 middle schools. The first phase of this work was to have all of our students who come into the building each and every day at different checkpoints in the morning to swipe a card, their ID card, and be verified they are, in fact, an Upper Darby School District student. Anyone who did not have a card would have to punch in their ID to verify who, in fact, they were coming into the building. And then the next phase of this project was to have it track attendance in the classrooms. So the same type of approach would be done in each classroom for each period to track period attendance and make sure those, again, who were in our building belong there, and we can track our attendance in our student information system, quicker and in a much more effective way. Excuse me. So, obviously it's the first year. It's had a rough start for the first couple of weeks, but it has been working the kinks out. And we are, the most important thing, verifying that every single person who's in our building is, in fact, an Upper Darby School District student. So there should be no additional instances of students coming in on campus who do not belong there, which is a good thing. The next two, really the next three, but there are two are on this slide, are some of our main systems of supports in our district we've had in place for a long period of time. First of which is PBIS, Positive Behaviors Interventions and Support Systems. Kind of snapshot of what this is, but essentially, the process of teaching expected behaviors, reinforcing those behaviors and modeling those behaviors in our school, so that every student is aware of and gets a chance to practice and show the proper behaviors in each area of the building, from our kindergartners all the way up through our 12th grade students. In addition to that, there's a data decision-making component to that. So behavior data is tracked. So if there are students that need supports that are a much higher level or a different level than the general population of our students, we know who those students are throughout the year, and we can move them through our tiered systems of supports. In addition to also recognizing what areas of the building or of our operations do need more targeted support in terms of more practice or additional reteaching of a certain behavior and a skill within the school system. To complement that, we developed, and thanks to the board approving this, a K-12 social and emotional curriculum a number of years ago. And we built that curriculum on CASEL's 5 competencies, which are listed here in the presentation. So as a complement to PBIS, We're now teaching our students how to be more self-aware and decision-making processes, and how to know what makes themselves work, and how to navigate their own social and emotional wellness within the classrooms. And we combine these teaching skills together so every student gets exposure to these lessons throughout the school year on different topics throughout the course of the year. But again, every student's exposed to this, these lessons and these processes within our school district, so that every student, we call our Tier 1 students, let's say, has exposure to these supports. They're all made aware of and have a chance to practice and be reinforced with these skills. The next piece that, again, is also for all of our students is our partnership with Lakeside Neurologic to help us bring a trauma-informed approach to our district schools. Again, we've had this partnership for a number of years now, and we have a pretty firm foundation built within all of our schools for how to be trauma-informed and how to take a trauma-informed approach to how we manage and work with our students. The neurologic specialists, as we call them, work with our teachers in coaching along the way to be more aware of signs of trauma, what to look for in a student who might be behaving a certain way, and how to respond to those students. Because again, what they try to focus on with their teachers is every response that we give a student can produce a reaction in our students. So we'd be very cognizant of how we approach our students who might have gone through some type of trauma within their lives. But a couple tangible items which are really important to kind of highlight that we have in place within all of our district classrooms right now are classroom regulation plans and school-wide regulation plans. So that every classroom teacher has evidence of what does that look like in their daily lesson planning in terms of what will they be doing for their students to help support them throughout the day and the week, to make sure their classrooms have a regulation system in place for when and or if students happen to need a break from the typical workload and have to take a breather from what's happening in their classrooms. Schools have trauma-informed leadership teams to help guide that work, and eventually we'll take over training the new staff and teachers within their building, become the experts in this area for their district school teams moving forward. But again, it's based on brain-based learning and brain-based approach. This is how we support students. That's the core foundation of what Lakeside and Neurologic brings to their work with trauma-informed approaches in schools. The next piece will be, if you think about it, moving up the tiers of support, be more of our school-based mental health supports. To be for students who might need a little bit of extra support, who might be targeted through our PBIS framework or our social and emotional framework, that might need a higher level of school-based care. So the first part is, we have support people in our district, our counselors, our social workers, our school psychologists, our nurses, all of our people service personnel, and including some other staff members who are trained in these areas and restorative practices, and other major initiatives we've gone through these past couple of years on how to work with students who might need a little extra support in the school day to respond to behavior or how to address certain behaviors. We have a referral process for how they get from the tiered system support to go see one of our people service personnel and get that extra level of support. But again, it's school-based mental health support. It could be in the form of a group work with similar types of needs. It could be individual, depending upon the level of the student, what the student needs, and maybe potentially the support that they might be recommended from outside supports too. The other layer to this is students who might need a higher level of care that goes above and beyond what we can provide here in the schools. We can refer them through our student assistance program or through connections through their own mental health support outside of school to bridge the connection between what's happening outside the school with their supports and what's happening inside the school. So we're all speaking the same language, supporting our students in the most effective way. And that's all done through our student support people, or again, our social workers, counselors, psychologists, nurses, and how that's facilitated, and the conversation's going back and forth. We have a long-standing partnership with Child Guidance Resource Center, and it started a number of years ago with having support in our emotional support classrooms through our special education programming in our K-12 rooms, but also having outpatient satellite clinics in a number of our schools, which we still have in place for this school year. And again, the benefit to that is that when students need a higher level of care and they are referred for mental health supports through their insurance company or through other means, they can come on campus to one of our district schools, where we have the satellite campus, and get that support during the school day or in their local neighborhood community. Rather than traveling down the road to Havertown or to another office, they can get it right here in their schools. And we are looking, in fact, to even expand this program now where they have a new mental health management, insurance management system within the county, who might be more open to expanding that partnership here in our district schools. So we have that kind of in the beginning stages of exploring that option here in our district schools for this coming school year and beyond. With our American Rescue Plan money, we were able to add additional clinicians to help support our school social workers, counselors, and psychologists with the mental health support, school-based mental health support in our schools as a response to the pandemic and schools being closed for the period of time they were closed. We're entering our last school year of that level of support. In addition to that, we also have an assessment going on with Child Guidance Resource Center to help us see what we can develop further with our school-based supports and what else we might be maybe missing or what we do really well in terms of continuing this level of support beyond this school year when the American Rescue Plan funding does close out at the end of this school year. But again, we have a lot of connections with Child Guidance who've been really a tremendous group to work with and supporting us, in our initiatives throughout the past decade and even beyond. And again, a very quick snapshot of what we have in areas of school-based mental health support and how we connect to a higher level of care outside our district schools here on this slide here. Speak Up is something, we've talked about a number of different years. We've heard about it before. We still have it in our schools this coming school year. But again, it's encouraging our young folks to have conversations about difficult topics to talk about: drugs, alcohol, violence, things that they might be seeing in their communities or in their home life or in the neighborhood or on social media. It's a facilitated conversation. You can see here, I'm not going to read everything to you here, but this is from the Speak Up website and what they do. But again, we've had a long standing partnership with the folks at Speak Up in helping support our students. The next group sessions for our secondary schools will be this coming February. And they're on scheduled, I believe in the mid-February at both of our middle schools and our high school to help with this conversation and encourage our young folks to talk about it and be more open for those who are willing and to start that conversation or begin talking about topics that might be hard to discuss with their parents or teachers or otherwise. But to encourage them to start having those conversations and continue to ask for support when they feel it's necessary. But again, the last bullet point here is they are working with a number of schools in our area in the Philadelphia region, which is a really great thing. The next two pieces, in addition, and we'll go through this, one by one, but in addition to having our codes of character, formerly known as codes of conduct, and our board policies on expulsion, suspensions, student discipline, bullying and harassment, we have a policy for threat assessments. Again, this is for how we respond to when threats are made within our schools. It's Board Policy 236.1, and it talks about, which we won't go into tonight, but the level of detail that goes into responding to a threat and how school teams, which every school has to have a school team with trained professionals who understand what a threat can be and what it is, and how to determine what type of threat is being made in our schools. So every single, even a joke, to say I'm going to hurt you or I'm going to kill you or whatever it might be, if it's even said in passing, is treated as a serious threat and reviewed individually with the school-based team. And there's documents and paperwork and interviews and all types of assessments that have to be completed to help that team make a determination whether this is a transient threat, meaning that it's not as serious as what it initially thought to be, or substantive, meaning that does have some backing to it and it could potentially result into some type of violence. And if it does go down that path, then the school teams respond to it and put supports in place in response to what they heard. But again, a very, very detailed and time-intensive process to respond to each and every threat. Many of these may come through the Safe to Say mechanism as well, and we do get that notified through that system. We do then respond when we had the first availability to do so, whether it's the next morning or whatever it might be, to address that threat, or it happens to be, and during off hours. You can see, Mr. Manley keeps track of all the threat assessments. There's almost 500 that were handled last school year. And again, these were made up of both transient and substantive. I can speak, and I think Mr. Manley will back me up here. Most of them were transient, but again, the same level of care that goes into each threat was provided each time this did occur. The last piece is our Title IX investigations. And again, this is a relatively new policy and law put into place right around when the pandemic was coming about. And we have a pretty, again, well-defined process here in the district. Ms. Simpson, our Supervisor of Human Resources, and Ms. Elgart, our Title IX Coordinator and Deputy Title IX Coordinator, who handle the majority of these issues. And again, I won't read everything to you, it's on the slide, but again, it's governed or it's covered by our board policy 103 and 104. 103 is for students, 104 is for staff who work in the district. But again, it's protections, a civil rights protection for anti-discrimination based on the examples up here. But again, a very, very time-intensive and can be complicated process for when these allegations do come in, and they're taken very, very seriously also with the level of detail and care that has to go into, which is required by law, to go into how we review these cases, investigate them, and respond to them appropriately, so the students and staff feel supported who are making the allegation or making the claim that something did occur. But again, we put up here just the email address and phone number of our Title IX Coordinator, Ms. Simpson, and our Deputy Title IX Coordinator, Ms. Elgart. In the event that anyone in the public sees this and would like to make a report who hasn't already, this is how you would contact these individuals. And they would take it from there. So a lot of information, again, but again, we want to go through just an annual review of what we have in place and how we respond to crises, but also how we proactively address and build our school climate to a positive system of care for our students here in the district. We're open to any questions from the board or the public at this point.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Marshallak, Mr. Manley. The school pass that you discussed earlier, is that the same pass that they use for busing as well?
So it's not connected to what they use for busing. That's something that we have discussed and brought about why maybe there's going to be a connection between the two. But right now it's done mainly at our school buildings when they arrive at school, on school campus.
But can school pass be accommodated for busing as well, or would that have to be another solution?
That's what we're exploring to see if there is a connection in the interface between the two systems.
Okay, perfect. Any questions, comments from the board?
Mr. Manley, thank you. Your portion of the presentation was very good, and so is yours. Mr. Marshak, would you mind returning to the mental health support slide? There. The satellite outpatient clinics. I can, easily understand that the three schools listed, the high school, Hillcrest, and Stonehurst, have students with needs. I can think of several other schools in the district. For instance, Bywood and Beverly Hills, that also seem to me to have, a significant number of students with needs. Can you just briefly explain how the three schools were chosen? I believe, if I remember correctly, Hillcrest has a special program. I'm not sure, about the others too. Thank you.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, any of our students can access any of these programs at our school. It's not just for the student to attend those school buildings. And those sites were selected, and this is going back even prior to my time, based on the Department of Human Services, that they have to be authorized and there's very specific criteria and space, of course, too, why those sites were selected. Stonehurst was a recent addition, the past 6 or 7 years. And right now we are looking at expanding it to another middle school potentially, and maybe 1 or 2 other elementary schools in the district. pending approval. There's a lot of red tape that goes into doing that and making sure we have approvals through the DHS and other systems. But it's open to all of our students, so it's not just for a student to attend those school buildings. And we will help facilitate, just like any other appointment. You would leave school to go, for a doctor. If you had to leave, let's say, Bywood to go get, your support, and you go to Stonehurst, it's a lot less time to go to Stonehurst than would be going down to Havertown or otherwise.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. If students need to travel to one of these 3 schools, are the families required to provide transportation?
So the parents would be providing transportation. Now, in some cases, especially at our high school, with parent permission, the clinician is able to see students with parent permission, like during the school day. So, for example, if a high school student has an appointment and wants to go see their therapist or their clinician, the parent doesn't have to be with them as long as they have permission from the parent to go get the support in the school building. We want, though, however, if a student does leave, let's say, from Beverly Hills to go to Stonehurst, we would really encourage them to be picked up by the parent and have transportation to and from, to ensure safety.
Okay, thank you very much.
I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I was wondering how many of our students take advantage of the Speak Up program?
So not off the top of my head, but we can definitely get you that information.
Thank you.
If I could just respond to that as well, the turnout has not been where we would like it to be from parent participation. I think the students are excited to do that. The key to that process, when Dr. Manfrey and I went to visit that many years ago in Radnor, when Mr. Norelli was here, and the program was brought to the district, the key to that is really parents coming out and hearing from kids about what's going on. So the students put a lot of time and effort into it, and the staff. The key to that is the parent turnout and the community turnout. So we have to continue to try to advocate. I know many folks here have participated and been a part of it as board members and as administrators. Again, it's one of those key areas, as you see in this presentation. There are a lot of resources in place here in the district. It's, again, getting people to come out and access those resources.
I just wanted to overly emphasize to the community how important it is to come out to events like Speak Up. I've been going to them every year, pardon me, since I was elected, and participating in those discussions and just being a listening board to those student-led and coordinated meetings that they do as a part of Speak Up is just mind-blowing. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, typically what is discussed in those rooms stays in those rooms. But I can tell you that based on conversations I've had afterwards with our faculty, they've been able to share with me that some of the lived experience that gets spoken about from adults, such as myself, to the students has been life-changing. Students have been able to, for example, go back home and have really important conversations about themselves with their parents, and do so in full confidence, knowing that they have, where this is going. So it's just a really positive experience.
Thank you, Director Warsavage. Any other comments from the board? No? Okay. All right. Concludes board comments. Are there any public comment with priority on in-person comments first? On tonight's agenda item in the Education and Pupil Services, the School Safety and Security Update. No in-person comments. Ms. Buford, are there any virtual, email, or phone comments?
There are no public comments at this time.
All right, thank you. Mr. Marshallek, would you mind reviewing tonight's agenda item presented this evening?
So we had one item tonight, and it was really our annual review of our school safety and emergency procedures presentation for this evening. That's it. Informational only also.
Thank you. I turn tonight's meeting back to President Desnoyers.
Thank you very much, Director Neal. A motion is in order for the adjournment of the Education and Pupil Services Committee meeting.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.